For those of you who don't know, Gavin Newsom has his very own podcast now. And his first guest on there was actually someone on the right, which was Charlie Kirk. A lot of people have been getting Newsom some pushback for starting this and also bringing in like MAGA people on the opposite side, which that is honestly the best thing he could do. You can give him pushback for saying, oh, he should be focused on his state. He's worried about this podcast. That's fair criticism there. I agree with that. But more people on the left need to be open and need to be having conversations with people on the right. Right now, people on the right dominate independent media because the left had so much support from the mainstream media for so long, they lacked on independent media. So now you have mainstream media dying and independent media blowing up. So if the left wants to survive in the future and wants to actually have a chance in 2026 and 2028 and all future elections in general, they need to be taking after Newsom here and actually opening up the debate table to have conversations. So in this video, I'm going to go through this podcast. I'm going to highlight all the stuff I thought was like the best parts of the debate. I'll put a link to it down below because this was kind of hard to find because Newsom is a new channel on YouTube. So usually new channels are harder to search for. So I'll put it down below. A lot of people have been saying they've been having trouble finding it. And then I'm going to go on X and show you kind of the big liberals that are pushing back on this and calling Newsom out, basically going against him, and a couple of conservatives that are basically saying watch out for him too. So before we jump in, make sure you like, subscribe down below, comment, and here we go. The first part of the video, Newsom mentions how his 13-year-old son is actually a big fan of Charlie Kirk's, and basically Charlie Kirk makes a little joke about that. So let's jump in.
She said,
"You never know; these kids are going to the right."
I'm aware. She said, "This crowd's crazy." I said, and the only reason she said, she would have said it perhaps otherwise, but she knew you were coming on. The worst part, though, Charlie, no BS, true story. Literally last night, trying to put my son to bed, he's like, "No, Dad, what time? What time's Charlie gonna be here? What time?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're in school tomorrow." He's 13. He's like, "No. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, I'm coming." I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is
you canceled school for like 2 years. One day.
The point is the point, which is you are.
So he makes a joke about how Newsom canceled school during, the whole pandemic, and they canceled school much longer than any other state. They were out of school for much longer. And as we all know at this point, shutting down all those schools for that long was really detrimental to the development of all these students that experienced that. So that's basically started off on a little happy, joking, good note. The next point is a little bit into it where basically they're talking about how young people have it harder than their parents right now, because usually as time goes on, it's supposed to get easier and easier and easier. Ideally, it should, or at least the same when it comes to starting a family, buying a home, stuff like that. And right now it's way harder for like millennials, Gen Z, all those generations than it is Gen X and the baby boomers. So let's jump into this.
Married and have kids, become more conservative. But no, look, just one of the things we saw in the last couple of years that the Democrats completely ignored, and your side was basically not acknowledging was happening, right, was the crisis that young people were experiencing.
Right.
It's the first time in America's history that a 30-year-old is going to have it worse off than their parents.
Right.
It's a breakdown of the social compact.
That's right.
They are the most alcohol addicted, most drug addicted, most suicidal,
yep,
most depressed, most medicated generation in history.
Right.
And the message that was largely being fed to a lot of young people was lower your expectations. You're not going to have the same American dream that your parents would have. Mm-hmm. And we saw this as an opportunity, especially with young men. And again, this got ridiculed a lot by the press that, they're creating this manosphere thing. Look, they're half of the population and necessary for any society and civilization to succeed, which is to have both strong men and strong women.
Yeah.
And we went about that in a very unique and creative way. And again, the president became a cultural phenomenon, right, where no matter what you threw at this guy, he rose above it. And you would even have to give him credit. I mean,
100%.
facing 700 years in federal prison,
yeah,
states tried to kick him off the ballot. I know you spoke out against it, but California did have a faction that tried to kick him off the ballot, right?
That's right.
And despite all of that, of course, being shot, and that was kind of the crescendo of all of it, he kind of became this figure of an American comeback story.
Yeah.
So he personified what a lot of young people, especially young men, wanted back in their politics, which was an ascendant rebel attitude against these institutions that have failed them so miserably.
So basically what he is saying there is that for the last 4 years, the Democrats have basically said, like, the economy's fine, everything's fine, just keep voting for us, it'll keep being fine. And in reality, normal people saw it's not fine. Normal people saw the economy is absolute garbage for 4 years. And even to this day, what really showed the true colors was when Trump became president, and all of a sudden, every Democrat started talking about how bad the economy is. Like, just January 20th, all of a sudden, it was just a whole different economy. Like, I will admit, the economy still sucks. Trump hasn't really done anything yet. It's only been, 5 weeks? So this is still the same economy. And all these liberals who are saying it was great under Biden, or who just ignored it under Biden, that's all they're talking about now. Same economy. That's literally proof that they didn't want to talk about it and that they missed the mark there, because that is the number one thing. But, immigration is really big too. That's one of the biggest things, especially affecting young people that want to start their lives. And the Democrats are really missing the mark there. Now they're trying to play it now and say, oh, economy, Trump's destroying the economy. In reality, Trump hasn't done anything at this point. Like, nothing significant he's done has affected the economy yet. It's all still, he hasn't really signed a bill yet. The spending bill hasn't even gone through. None of his tax on tip, tax on whatever, none of that stuff's going through yet. So yeah, it's still the same economy, but now Democrats are trying to say, oh, it's all because of Trump. They're trying to switch it, which that just shows how dumb they think the American people are. In this next part, which I've been saying this for a long time, and this is by far probably one of the biggest reasons why Democrats can't get out of their own way here. They look down on the working class. They think because they have college degrees, they're smarter than everyone in the room. They know better than everyone in the room. They're completely out of touch with normal working Americans that make up a majority of the country. And this will always hurt them. But this is where they get into this here.
I grew up in Illinois, which Midwest, it was traditionally more of an ACT.
But this has been a point of pride for you that you didn't do a 4-year degree. And
Because I represent most of the country. Is that actually still the majority of the country does not have a college degree. And if I may, bluntly critique the Democrat Party, you guys have become so college credentialed and educated that you guys snobbishly look on the muscular class of this country, the people that kept things afloat and running during COVID. And the majority of the country didn't go to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, Caltech, or Cal Berkeley, right?
Thank you.
And the Republican Party has become far more representative of them, large in part thanks to Trump. But and look, I say it with some pride also because as an entrepreneur, I tried to build something, right? Not just seek a credential.
Love that. And there are 11 million folks, there are 11 million jobs out there. You make this point all the time.
Oh yeah, open jobs that don't require a college degree.
Do not require a college degree. So when you say, and it's interesting because there's sort of that critique of the Democratic Party that we are captured by this sort of college elite. In what respect? I mean, stress test that for a second. Allow me to. What specifically are you referencing in that context?
Well, your voters have become nearly, the higher you go up the education ladder, the higher the correlation it is that you vote for the Democrat Party. And it's almost a one-to-one with PhD. It's like 75% for master's degrees and it's 65% for
why do you think that's the case? What are the issues that sort of are identified that lie in that respect?
The sloppy analysis is like, oh, they're smarter, therefore they must be Democrats.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's silly and insane.
Yeah.
But
insulting.
I totally agree. Yeah. The deeper and more profound analysis is that a lot of ideological bubbles that exist on these college campuses, they are homogeneous, not heterodox when it comes to what ideas are expressed. And then secondly, the value system that you leave on college campuses is high trust of institutions. So the biggest divide in America is not right versus left. It's whether or not you generally trust institutions or you don't trust institutions. And this has been largely inverted the last 20 years.
Right.
So back in the early 2000s, Democrats were low trust of institutions, Iraq War, anti-Bush, anti-NSA, anti-Patriot Act. And that's when you guys had a lot of activist spark and energy. That has been completely inverted. So the right is now low trust of institutions, where the left is high trust of institutions. We're the ones that challenge the COVID vaccine. We're the ones that think that public health authorities might have lied to us during COVID.
Right.
We're the ones that don't necessarily believe the government when it says that we should keep.
I think this is one of the weirdest things that people don't talk about a lot, is how much the Democrats have really just started to trust the government when it comes to everything. And I think that's mainly just because they're so anti-Trump that they have to be pro-establishment. I think that's the biggest thing. But he talks about basically college campuses are usually echo chambers of strong Democrat views. If you look at college professors, besides engineering, most college professors are heavy Democrats. And they talk about those views with their students, and then you have all these students that are around only other Democrats, and the ones that are conservatives are scared to even talk about these things. And I honestly think Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point, going around college campuses, is kind of exposing that, because he's showing the crazies that are on these college campuses, and hopefully he continues to do that. And it's like they said in the video, it's insulting that these Democrats that are like PhDs, masters, all this stuff, think they know better than everyone else, when in reality, the rest of the country is the working class people. They're the people that are paying taxes, that are working hard, that are, say, constructing the roads, that are building the bridges we drive on, manufacturing the cars. All this stuff is absolutely a necessity in our society, and it's looked down upon because, oh, you don't need a 4-year degree for that. Oh, you don't need that. Like it's so backwards. Like that stuff should be looked upon. Like joining the military doesn't need a degree, but you're going to look up at someone who is in the military, So I think that's something that's really backwards in our society, that Democrats truly are like showing their side on. And if they need to change that whole perspective and outlook that they show people, or else it's not going to get better for them going forward. So next part will be the big topic of discussion, which will be talking about, you might have seen this clip go around YouTube. This was the big one going around X. This was the big clip going around, which is talking about, should trans athletes be able to compete in women's sports? So this is something that a lot of people think helped Trump win the election, is because of this singular issue. He came out with that ad, Kamala's for they, them, Trump is for, Americans, or whatever it was. That hit home to a lot of people, especially people with daughters that don't want to see trans athletes compete against them. So this is discussing that right here.
Give us some
Get
advice.
better ideas, Governor.
Is
Like,
it
for example,
ideas?
I mean, like, if you want to, you have an opportunity to, run to the middle and see this man. So obviously,
Right.
you're talking to me of all people.
Yeah.
So, you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
Right.
that shouldn't happen. You, as the governor, should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate.
But, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness.
So
it's deeply unfair.
would you speak out against this young man, A.B. Hernandez, who right now is going to win the state championship in the long jump? I can see you wrestling with it.
No, I'm not wrestling. I'm not wrestling with the fairness issue. I totally agree with you. By the way, as someone with 4 kids, I think
And 2 daughters, right?
2 daughters.
And I have a daughter too.
And a wife that went, God forbid, to Stanford and played on the junior national soccer team, and a guy who got into college only because I was left-handed and could throw a baseball a little bit, or hit the ball for a little bit. So I revere sports, and so the issue of fairness is completely legit. And I saw that the last couple of years. Boy, did I saw how you guys were able to weaponize that issue at another level.
Not weaponize. Don't. That's
well, weaponize may be pejorative. You're right, but you were able to
shine a light on,
highlight it in a way that, frankly, there are not that many. We're talking about, I think, NC2A, what, 510,000? No, but I just didn't realize.
It's 890 medals and trophies that we know of in the last 5 years. That's a lot.
No, so let me step back, say completely fair on the issue of fairness. I completely agree. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue with the kind of decent?
So basically he starts getting into why it's a tough decision for him when it comes to this whole situation, because it's really effective on a group of people that are more likely to end their own lives because of it. It's a mental disorder. So I'm not going to say much more about that because of YouTube, but basically this shouldn't be allowed. Trans sports shouldn't be trans shouldn't be allowed to compete against women. This is a huge issue for people. They're built differently. It's unfair advantage. Obviously, someone like Riley Gaines has been outspoken about this. Charlie Kirk's been outspoken about this. And what's crazy here is Newsom's being like, "Oh, I agree with you. It's not fair. It's not fair," right? This goes on in his own state. Like the track person that Charlie Kirk was mentioning, that's going on in California right now. And Newsom later on in the video basically blames on a law from 2014 from the previous governor, but it's like, you've never pushed to change this. You never pushed and act like this was an issue for you personally. You just stayed the course. You've sided with this, and now you're going to try to play like the middle of the road. That's what a lot of people in X are saying he's trying to play this like middle ground thing because he does want to run for president in 2028. And he probably knows better than most Democrats that you have to be more moderate if you want a chance of winning. Like this whole like far left thing is not going to do it for you, which Kamala tried to switch to moderate after flipping all of her views a few months in advance, and it didn't work. Newsom is a much better speaker. He could sell you on his views a lot better than Kamala can, but at the end of the day, there's all this record of his views in the past. So it's going to always be held over his head. You know, they're going to need to get someone with a cleaner record than him if they want to have a chance. So the next part is that same ad I mentioned. They basically said how Kamala messed up by not even responding to it and how effective it was.
Not you, but like that's a typical thing. But the most effective ad of this election cycle, the most effective ad, you know what it is?
Yeah, and devastating. Trump's for you, she's for they, them.
And
devastating.
Devastating.
And,
let's talk
and she didn't even react to it, which was even more.
And let's talk about why it was devastating. Number one, it was the trans issue that was just monopolizing.
And this was even more challenging because it's issues of people that are incarcerated
and
illegal incarcerated individuals getting taxpayer funded.
Yes, and
gender reassignment searches. That is a 90-10, not an 80-20.
Right, and then she's like enthusiastically defending it, bragging, being like, I'm all for this, I'm all for this.
And then you had the video that was a validator. Brutal.
Yeah, and so
tens of millions of brutal, and then the targeted focus from the Trump campaign, next level.
And then Charlemagne comes out on Breakfast Club is like, this is insane, and they ran it on NFL football.
Brilliant.
Yes, and so you're trying to reach men. Yeah. It's not. It's a brilliant campaign commercial. It was brutal. It was devastating. It doesn't require.
By the way, we were running around just for the what the hell it's worth for you. She was AG at the time. She was addressing the issue of illegal settlement. The courts were intervening on this topic. But she had the video where in the video she was obviously expressed support.
It seems like Gavin Newsom is trying to point out how ridiculous that whole thing was, but it's like he didn't call it out when it was happening. He didn't call it when the ad came out, basically saying Kamala's views on this are ridiculous. It seems like now he's trying to play that middle of the road. Let me get some voters, let me get some views, that route. And I don't think it's going to work. I mean, I could be wrong. Next is a little farther in. I got about 9 clips for you guys. So I don't know if you guys were wondering. So a lot of you might not know this. California has a law where if a student at a public school wants to identify as trans, non-binary, whatever that is, and they tell the teacher is not required to tell the parents about any of this. They can hide it from the parents, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, parents should obviously be involved in any little thing that's worth a topic of conversation. The parents should be involved. I don't get why there's this mindset of like, oh, let's leave the parents out of it. It makes no sense at all. So this is them discussing that law a little bit.
But if you want to learn, Governor, and I'm happy that there is a movement of moms that's growing where they feel as if our kids are being hypersexualized. And I agree with them that they have to hear topics.
Social media?
Well, both in the social media and the classroom. Particular. And I mean, look, again, you signed a law where school districts can't even tell parents if their kids are trans.
Not true.
Okay,
Factually untrue.
Okay, then.
No, they can. They just can't get fired for not doing that. And it wasn't just trans.
Fired for not.
The law was explicit. It said you can't be fired for not snitching on a kid, not just for being trans, for being gay. And my point is, how in the hell?
But shouldn't the parents know?
They have every.
But is telling parents snitching?
No, the teachers themselves have the right. The law is they can do that. They can do that. We're not saying you can't do that. We're saying you shouldn't be fired if you choose not to say Johnny was talking about liking some other boy. That's a charitable reading. The other way, charitable. It's actually the freedom not to.
Let me tell you the other way to say this: that a teacher, of course, should be fired if you don't notify a parent of what's happening to their kid. But of course, they should be terminated for that.
If on health and safety, shouldn't they be teaching? I want these kids to I want these teachers to teach. And by the way, if they feel like the health or safety of the kid, they have a responsibility to communicate. They still can. By the way, we're not selling these teachers they can't. We're saying they won't be fired if they don't look around.
See, right here, you can tell he's trying to justify it, basically saying, "Oh, we're protecting teachers' rights," and obviously, teachers' unions heavily, like 99% of them, donate Democrats. So obviously, people like Newsom feels like they owe them something in return, right? So no surprise there. But the thing is that, it's one thing if like kids are just talking to each other. If there's a kid that's literally coming to a teacher and being like, hey, I'm gay, or I feel this, we're like, feeling some kind of comfort zone with that teacher, right? That teacher should report that to the parents immediately. Okay, that's something that should be reported. They're gay, they're trans, whatever. That's something that should be reported to the parents. Let the parents know, because like parents need to know everything going on. And if they're going that far to where they're telling a teacher and the teacher's just hiding it, that's weird. Okay. Anything like, and I think that's the biggest thing where you see a lot of these issues with kids. Like the bunch of Democrats just politicized an 11-year-old girl like a week or two ago that ended her own life, and they said it was due to bullying because she was illegal, and they said it was due to bullying, right? But it turns out this kid has been going to counseling at the school for months over this bullying, and they never told the parents. The parents never knew this was going on. The parents were not involved. The bully was never held accountable before that. They knew it was all happening, and they did not do anything. That's the issue. If they got the parents involved, that kid would still be alive. But they didn't. That's the issue. Parents should always be known, and should know about everything going on in their kid's life. And schools hiding stuff will never end in a good way. So there is never a good argument for this. Next part, about 47 minutes in. This is the thing a lot of us conservatives always say. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I give Gavin Newsom credit for this. He is willing to have a conversation with the other side, things that probably 95% of Democrats can't do. Okay. So he's showing this in this podcast. His first, out of all people, his first person he has on there is Charlie Kirk, one of the biggest conservative debaters there are, So he's showing that here. So they talk about, Charlie Kirk pretty much brings up how his side can't do that, and it's a good point.
We're losing. We have this, I feel it's asymmetry of Donald Trump and Elon Musk sending out tweets, or you doing social media, and then me doing a 3-minute hit at 3:00 in the afternoon on CNN. I mean, how the hell do we compete? We're toast.
Well, I mean, I'm part of it, and credit to you for doing long-form podcasting, because long-form podcasting does penetrate different audiences, right? And our show does very well. But part of the problem of the Democrat Party that for the health of the country would be great to change is that Democrats cannot survive in long-form podcasting environments.
Why?
It's too unscripted. It's too masculine, honestly. And the Democrat Party's become too
What is
feminine.
masculine about a podcast? Honestly, because I get the whole manosphere, this bro podcast.
To go into the wilderness with no rules and duel it out and see who's better or who's strong. No, seriously. I mean, like, what? No, I mean, like,
we don't do it. You're right. We, for whatever reason, don't do it.
You can laugh, but like, who in the Democrat Party?
We're not. You're right.
Will go. I mean, maybe Bernie Sanders, but he only
RFK
like an hour
when he was a Democrat.
Well, Bobby, who's now HHS. But like, there's something to be said that if you want to earn the respect of forgotten America, you have to show them that you can intellectually joust with no script, no hard breaks, no producers in the ears, no teleprompters. That's where new media is going. Now,
see, that's it right there. Independent media is skyrocketing. Podcasts, like if you even look on the conservative side, I can't even, besides the Young Turks, and if you want to count Destiny the streamer, there's not really a big left-wing podcast out there. On the right, you got Charlie Kirk, you got Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro, anyone at the Daily Wire, you got The Quartering, Jeremy The Quartering, you have all these big name people. Brett Cooper's independent now. You have all these big name people on the right. The left isn't keeping up, and that's because the left had the mainstream media covering them for so long, but now mainstream media is dying, and ironically, the biggest mainstream media, most popular mainstream media outlet right now is Fox News, which is on the right. CNN's dying, MSNBC's dying. They're not doing well. So that's something that needs to change for them. But the thing is, they're scared to have conversations. They're scared to debate. And Kamala proved that in this election cycle. She didn't do any the only tough interview she did was Fox News. And it was for like 10 minutes. And then her handlers were like, hey, we need to end this because she was getting destroyed so much. She couldn't go on Joe Rogan, even though they try to make so many excuses for her, saying it's Joe Rogan's fault. That was 100% her fault. If she wanted to go on Joe Rogan, she would just went there and did it. And she made excuses why she couldn't. So that would have helped her out tremendously. That's the thing. I'm not saying all Democrats like this, but Kamala came off so fake to where if you can't even sit down and have a couple hour conversation with someone, Joe Rogan's not like this really in depth asking for very specifics on every kind of issue. He's more just like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? He lets his guests talk more than he actually talks. That's something that's really good in someone being open-minded. And Joe Rogan is one of the most open-minded podcasters there are. And and if the next candidate doesn't do that either, I think they're screwed. So the next part So Newsom asked Charlie Kirk, what Democrats does he respect out of the Democrats that there are? And he does make a good point here. Bring up.
It's like becoming Gavin, like becoming Michelle, right?
But so what? I mean, are there Democrats you do forget? Literally, any Democrats you admire out there right now? I mean, even beyond just the podcast thing, that you look and say, Jesus, there's hope.
Gotta stop saying that.
Forgive me. There's hope. We can edit that out.
No, I don't care. You can keep it in. I used to have respect for Bernie on his anti-war stance, and now he's a complete neocon.
I was going to ask you about Bernie.
He's a complete neocon now, so he's not there. Democrats I respect. Bobby Kennedy I respect. Tulsi Gabbard.
Why are you laughing? Why are you smiling?
Because like they're on our team now because you guys kicked out like your best people. It's like the people that were into. This is a great point though, Governor. Is that Bobby Kennedy was a heterodox opinion on a thing that a lot of people were concerned about. Get him out. He's an anti-vaxxer. Yeah. Tulsi Gabbard, who was anti-war. Get her out. She's a Russian agent. Yeah. Do you guys see how you have an unhealthy purification process where eventually you're left with just a 31% approval rating and a bunch of people that are talking to each other? And meanwhile, we're the ones that have Democrats in our cabinet winning the electoral majority vote because there needs to be said if Democrats are serious about being a majority party ever again, when somebody has a disagreement, for example, if there's a pro-life Democrat, is there a place for a pro-life Democrat in the Democrat Party?
I mean, there should be.
Okay, that's
on principle.
So basically what he's saying here is people like RFK and Tulsi, and they actually pretty much did get kicked out of their own party. Like if you looked at Robert Kennedy, he ran against Biden in the primary, and then every Democrat like demonized him for it going against Biden. They didn't even hold any votes in the primary. They wouldn't hold any debates. They basically made it to where it was impossible for him to run, which is why he had to switch to independent to even have a chance. And then after that, they still demonized him. His own family went against him to the point where they basically pushed him to Trump. It got to a point where RFK Jr. knew he wasn't going to win, right? He knew he wasn't going to win. But his biggest issue is the health of this country, and he wanted someone to help with that. Kamala and Biden and them said no. Trump said yes. Regardless of what his other views are, because I think he's pro-abortion. He's really left when it comes to the environment, all those things. The right found a way to implement him in a way to where he is helping. He has diverse views, but he is helping. They are open to him. Even though they disagree with him on other things, they're open to having him on their side. Tulsi Gabbard has been anti-war for years. She's literally told stories about when she was a congresswoman, when Obama was president, and she wanted to be against drone strikes, and all these Democrats behind closed doors demonized her because she was going against something Obama said, because it's a sin to go against the leader of the Democrat Party. That's the issue. So she was basically kicked out. She ran for president in 2020. Fun fact, got more votes than Kamala did in 2020, running in the primary. Then it got to a point where she became independent and then switched to the right because she got kicked out by her own party. And then all these people saying she's a Russian asset because she is anti-war. It's crazy. It's mental. So that's the issue here. And Bernie, a lot of people used to respect Bernie. And it's funny because the most people that respected Bernie back then were everyone but Democrats. The Democrats basically made sure he didn't win in 2016, the primary. They made sure he didn't win the 2020 primary. And Bernie still goes to their defense and stays on that side, even though they're the reason he didn't win those primaries. They made sure he didn't win. And now they want to try to back him. It's all fake. And I guarantee you if he ran in 2028, which would probably be like 105 by then, they would do the same thing. Bernie is a sellout. He does not practice what he preaches. All he does is just yell and complain. And it's what it is. He's not the guy that he was portrayed in 2016 and 2020. So last part of here, Charlie Kirk gives a little bit of advice for Democrats on what to do going forward, because obviously they are kind of lost as a party. They need some help.
And understand what's coming. But anyway, if I were to give you
so give me somebody advice,
I'll give you the B and C level stuff. But it's very simple. You have to go to war with your own party on three major things. You got to say, we are not going to do this illegal immigration thing anymore, which includes, like, are you going to work with ICE?
We do work with ICE.
Okay, great. So
let me, by the way,
I want to make sure
people
I
can know this. We have been. In fact, directly, we actually put out the data. I actually reached out to the administration saying, are you not aware that California coordinates and cooperates with all CDCR releases over 10,000?
Explain the sanctuary state thing then. What is the
You've got the
difference?
statewide sanctuary state, and you've
Which
got
Governor
local
Brown
sanctuary
signed it,
cities.
not you.
Yeah, which in the statewide framework allows us to work as it relates to issues of criminals and coordinating the release of criminals from our from our state prison system. We coordinate with ICE on the deportation. We've done that over 10,000 times since I've been governor. We're not denying access. We're not denying coordination.
I'm
for
glad to hear
criminals.
that. That's why I
for
asked.
criminals. Sanctuary
Well,
policy
I mean,
was never.
I would say if you break into the country illegally in 8 USC 1325 is a breaking of
I
federal
get it.
law,
It's
right?
civil, not criminal. But
it is a federal law. But,
I get it.
But
Civil,
I'm
not
saying, so
criminal.
by the way, if you're serious about moderating the party, 8 USC 1325, vast majority of Americans.
Okay, so we
let me
got
just
that.
go through.
No, I
vast
get
majority
it.
of Americans want mass deportations. It's just a thing.
Until they don't.
Well, okay.
That's my humble opinion.
Fine.
Until they don't.
Okay. They
Someone
voted
who's
on
been
it.
here 10 years,
You might be right.
paying taxes. I don't buy it.
You might. Well,
but at the moment, you're right.
You might be right.
The numbers bear it out.
We'll see. Number two, we mentioned the trans stuff. It's an affront to all of our senses. It's out of control. You
don't believe in it fundamentally. It's not just sports. It's not style. You just don't. I mean, get
back
to
Charlie
living.
Kirk's views are separate than the political advice I'm giving. But if you'd like me to, we should do a whole.
No, I get it.
Charlie Kirk asked me anything, and you can show up to Cal State Northridge on Thursday.
I've got 25 TikToks of what your feelings are. So actually, that was a question I didn't even ask.
If you want it, it's fine. I just don't think that's the best use of our time. But on the political advice is that Americans increasingly believe that their good-heartedness and charitable nature towards the LGBT issue has gone overblown, especially with youth sports, youth curriculum, and the chemical castration of our kids when it comes to this medical therapy. And you seem that you want to really, I encourage you, Governor, to learn about some of the butchery under the guise of healthcare that is happening under chemical castration in this state and in other states. We don't spend a lot of time on that.
So basically, Charlie Kirk saying that they have a lot to work on, pretty much. Immigration, trans issues. I think he continues on to basically saying conversations. Big thing with Democrats, refuse to have conversations. So basically going forward, Democrats do have a lot of work to do. They seem to be lost as a party going forward. They're like propping up Jasmine Crockett now for whatever reason. Al Green is now getting a space because he held up a cane to Trump, which to me just looked childish. Like clearly the dude just wanted his 5 seconds of fame. You can yell and scream in the what's it called, State of the Union address. People do it all the time. They'll do it for like a second or two here and then shut up. He kept going. He wanted to get kicked out because he wanted to try to show a statement, and all it did was make him look stupid. So you can't be doing that. You need to have conversations, and a lot of their views are a little too extreme, and the American people see that. They look like they're elitist. They look like they don't care about the American people. And like I said, their communication's bad. They need to do more podcasting, more independent stuff, stay less off MSNBC, CNN. And that's all they can really do to help. I do want to talk about, so after this video, now this video is over, there's some liberal outrage at Gavin Newsom for even having a conversation with Charlie Kirk. And this was Charlie Kirk's point, was that you have to be able to talk to people. And they just refuse to. The left refuses to. And also people are getting them on the trans stuff a little bit too. But all this probably wash over. But let's start with Parker, everyone's favorite TikToker, Parker. He says, Gavin Newsom, you are a effing coward for not standing with trans people, would never support your ticket for president. Oof. So this is sharing the Political article. It says, Gavin Newsom broke with his party on trans athletes in sports, suggesting that Dems were in the wrong for allowing trans to participate in female college and youth sports. And I will say, I think now, like one person, Gavin Newsom, did this. I think a few more will trickle through because, it's common sense. So the People's City Council of Los Angeles, this has 117,000 views. Says, Gavin Newsom is a piece of S, and this is indicative of all the Democratic Party, quote, leaders. They're willing to sell us out at any point it seems politically convenient to them. F them all. Okay. You have the Tennessee Holler, which is like a very liberal, I don't want to say news organization, some kind of liberal page about Tennessee. California's Governor Gavin Newsom just launched his podcast by interviewing right-wing political activist Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, and says he, quote, admires what he's been able to do. So it shows all these different clippings. Liberals torch trash Gavin Newsom for launching podcast Charlie Kirk. Newsom, they're all just basically trashing him. You have this. This account's become really big lately, 123,000 views. Gavin Newsom will never be president. I agree. It was not because of this. He was just never going to be president. This one, I don't know how it popped up. It's only got 52 views, but it popped up. Gavin Newsom interviewing fascist Charlie Kirk is unconscionable. Newsom sucked off Charlie while saying how much his son loves Kirk. What a way to tell on yourself as a horrible father. Newsom capitulated to MAGA and thus can never be considered for president in 28. We need more Al Greens and less Gavin Newsoms in the Democrat Party. More Al Greens, more showing your cane to Trump, because that'll show how good you guys are. Yeah. And then this is a conservative. He's such a funny dude. He's basically saying that Gavin Newsom is trying to get support in 2028 by playing in the middle. Don't trust him. And that's what he is doing. Like, we all know Gavin Newsom, on the right anyway. We know Gavin Newsom's fake. He'll flip-flop. He does this, like the Kamala thing. And that's basically what Terrence Williams is trying to say here. So that's pretty much it. That's the whole summary of the debate. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to put a link to the actual debate in my description so you guys watch the whole thing. I only went over maybe a third or fourth of the actual debate. There's still a lot in there that I just didn't. They talk about book bans. They talk about TikTok. They talk about a few other things. I felt this stuff was more important and more prominent into like right now. So I still highly recommend watching the whole thing. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe down below. Subscribe to my other channels right there. And I'll see you guys next time.